Hello and welcome to Instant Transmission, a podcast where we discuss everything Dragon Ball and how many abs is too many abs. Tonight we're going down another family tree, but this time it's Goku's. We've got the 1990 TV special Bardock, Father of Goku, primed and ready for our opinions. So tap into your latent psychic energy and concentrate on my voice because we're about to deep dive into some Bardock. I'm your host Dayton, and once again I'm joined by my co-host Todd.
Hi.
And tonight's episode will be covering the October 17th, 1990 TV special release Dragon Ball Z Bardock, Father of Goku, which was dubbed in English by Funimation and released in 2001. And according to the Dragon Ball Wiki, it was the first Dragon Ball Z feature to be dubbed by Funimation's in-house voice cast. So the voice acting wasn't contracted out. With all that covered, Todd, was there anything you wanted to add before we got things started?
No, I think we can dive right into this TV special.
Cool. Well, this special begins with some funky low beat rock dubstep thing repeating the slogan Dragon Ball Z. And as weird as it is, I kind of dig it.
It was a weird nostalgia pull, and I just totally forgot that they did so many different things with the intro after Rock the Dragon. It's just funny and goofy.
You could tell they just didn't really know what to do with it. They were like, all right, well, maybe just deleting the lyrics isn't working. Or actually, I think they did that later. I don't know. It's all over the place. They try about 10 different things, and all of them do bring me back to nostalgia land.
Yeah, 100%. This does, though. We kind of start the main story with a long shot of planet Vegeta, and we get to see a few non-Saiyan scientists who are discussing a new baby Kakarot and discussing his power level and what to do with him.
Yeah, and there's gonna be a lot of kind of Goku ties into a lot of things that are happening, but it is kind of neat seeing the very beginning, the very origin of Goku. This is, arguably the youngest shot of him we'll get. But we're not here long because we pretty quickly flip over to some other planet where we see an alien race being just obliterated by a bunch of giant apes. And I love this. I love seeing the Saiyan race out doing conquest, capturing aliens for the supreme Lord Tyrant of the universe. I think this scene is amazing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we get to see the full moon on this planet. We get to see like a handful of, I think it's 5 of the giant Ozaru monkey form Saiyans, and they're just, I mean, full on King Kong, like smashing buildings and shooting lasers out of their mouths. The people that they are kind of taking over seem to be some sort of fish humanoid people. It's a fun scene. I can't really knock this one. I like it a lot.
No, and I mean, it's a very brief scene because we pretty quickly see them get obliterated and it gets to morning time. And the Saiyans are all kind of gathered together, or the small squad of them anyway. And they're talking about how they don't really remember the battle because when they go into the Ozaru form, they don't really retain their memories, except for Bardock, who retains his memories of the battle, but just doesn't really seem to care about his kid, is kind of the joke that they're making.
Yeah. So this is going to, I think one of the big things to talk about with this TV special is the characterization for Bardock, because it is later, if you want to say later retconned, technically this TV special could be considered non-canon because I don't think that this was ever covered in the manga. So this is anime only content. But this does get changed in the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie as far as like Bardock's characterization and his story and his connection with Goku and everything. So how do you feel, Dayton, about how Bardock is starting to be characterized as like he doesn't care about his family and all that? What do you think about that, Dayton?
Well, okay, I'm going to just ignore the later Bardock, I guess you could say, updates. I'm just going to focus on this in its own little world here because there's decades difference between the release of this and the Broly movie. It's almost 25 years. And so I'm just going to focus on this with the content that we had around the time And I actually don't mind this characterization because the Saiyans are kind of this ruthless warrior race, and it's pitched as it's kind of a custom where when a kid's born, they're immediately sent off the battle to forge their own destiny, sort of thing. Or at least that was my understanding. So for me, this fits the generic characterization of the Saiyan race that's been kind of pitched to me. So I actually think it makes sense to me.
No, I totally agree with that. I mean, if we consider like if you're a parent and you birth a Saiyan child, why would you want to get attached to it in those first days or weeks when it's going to just get sent off and you won't see the child for decades potentially? Like it
Yeah,
makes
and
sense.
looking at like say the kid wasn't sent off to conquer planets, you are. Like how often are you actually on your home planet to even see your kids? So the way they live their lives, it should feel very alien to us because they are aliens. And I'm okay with this. I think this is actually decent story writing here to really show how different this culture is to maybe the ones that we are.
Yeah, that's a good point. The It's interesting because there's kind of a mixture, especially amongst this group, because some of the other characters in Bardock's team are kind of like joking with him and prodding him. I think one of them even says like, "Ah, you should go see the kid. He was just born yesterday." Um, so it's like I don't know. They definitely have a different idea about family than we do on Earth for sure.
Yeah, and maybe they were implying this, but is it that Bardock is even a step beyond that, where maybe other Saiyans at least spend a little bit of time? It almost seems like Bardock's doing the opposite. He's even less caring than the average Saiyan. Is that kind of the message that they're trying to get across?
It kind of feels that way to me. Yeah, it feels like he's on even the extreme side for a Saiyan of just like, yeah, I don't care. He even says we to be clear, we are talking about the dub version, which might be a little bit different too, but Bardock even says that oh, you know, my kid's birth happened forever ago. Which is funny if you think about the fact that Bardock also has another son in Raditz. So you could almost think that either one, he's talking about Goku, who was just born yesterday, or Kakarot, or two, he doesn't even remember the birth of his, or know about the birth of his second son. And when he says, my son's birth happened forever ago, he's referring to Raditz.
Is that intentional or is that just a connection that you're making?
I don't think it's intentional. I think it's more of a connection that I'm kind of putting in there, but it was just funny to me hearing that
Well,
dialogue.
I will say because since you brought up Raditz's name, that is a big critique I have of this. Is Raditz is nowhere to be found anywhere in this special. He doesn't exist, not by name, not by picture. We don't see any Raditz throughout this whole thing, which is kind of a big glaring hole. We should have some Raditz somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. I know just by comparison for like the Broly movie, the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie does at least show Raditz in it, and it also has. Well, we'll see. We don't have any Gine, Goku or Kakarot's mother in this special either.
But this moment of fooling around and making jokes is cut pretty quick when we see a one of the alien inhabitants pull himself out of the rubble and surprise attack our current crew of characters. We see Bardock being struck on the back of the head, seemingly doing some weird damage to his internals. Before he kind of gets his composure back together and blasts this alien out of existence. But there's a message given over by the alien claiming that he's given him the psychic powers that I believe Frieza was seeking.
Yes. Yeah. It sounded like Frieza wanted to claim this planet, thinking that maybe he could acquire psychic powers or maybe even potentially like. I'm kind of curious if they were supposed to keep some of them alive to use them as like slaves or workers for their psychic powers, but the Saiyans obliterate all of them, including this last guy who attacks Bardock. They key blast him into oblivion.
Yeah, and it's kind of this weird scene where he's on like blue fire while giving his farewell message to Bardock. And after this alien I don't know, inhabitant. He's not the bad guy. He's definitely seemingly an all right dude who's killed by these Saiyans. Once he's finally gone, you see Bardock just kind of pass out, and then we flip away from the scene and actually move over to Vegeta, who's training against a group of Cybermen.
I like this scene. I like getting to see Vegeta as a child. I like getting to see that he was a prodigy. That all kind of like ties into the way that he acts towards Goku when Vegeta first comes to Earth. And to add to that, the fact that he's a child here, I think he's maybe, I don't know, 8 years old, 7, 8 years old. And he's taking on what, at least half a dozen Cybermen, one of which beats Yamcha on Earth, which is wild.
Someone beating Yamcha? I don't think that's that wild. But no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, it's really showing how strong Vegeta is at such a young age, how his bloodline probably has something to do with it too, where he's, born with whatever the midichlorians in Dragon Ball Z are. He's got more of those. And just, given every opportunity. And I love that. Even when Vegeta's done, he screams at the guy who's supposed to be manning the doors that why isn't he let out yet? Like there's all this personality in such a short amount of dialogue. I actually love the way we don't get much Vegeta in this, but I love every scene that he's portrayed in.
The one detail that I want to bring up that I don't really like unless you apply what I've seen as a fan theory online for it. I don't like that Vegeta's hair is different. He has like bangs on the front of his forehead, and normally, of course, he has his iconic widow's peak. And we kind of know that Saiyan's hair, unless they cut it, doesn't really change or grow. And so that part is weird to me. I did see online though, somebody posted that it would be interesting if Vegeta pushed or styled his hair in a way to emulate his father's hair after his father's death. And I mean, that just ties into so many things because Vegeta always calls himself the Saiyan Prince and not the King of Saiyans, even after his father's death. So it's just a funny little detail, and I really like that fan theory.
I'm trying to think that detail about the Saiyan's hair. It came out in the Cell Saga, I believe. They were trading the hyperbolic time chamber, and I believe someone mentions like, well, why isn't your hair different? And Vegeta's like, well, the Saiyan hair stays the same all the time. So this could have happened before the Saiyan hair detail actually got moved to canon.
Almost certainly. Yeah. Yeah, you are probably right about that. Because I mean, we even see like Nappa, who is normally bald, has a tuft of black hair on the top of his head, which of course he could have shaved, but I don't like Saiyans are such a proud race. I don't feel like they would cut their hair. Like I feel like that would be a big thing for them.
I also want to point out that I think that the Saiyan hair never changing is like a weird detail to the race that doesn't need to exist. And now that it does, it probably adds more problems than it does solutions.
You're probably not wrong about that. I yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was just a way for them to explain away like we draw these characters the same way all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those details where if they don't stay true to it, I'm not going to kill them on it because it's such a weird detail. Like I feel like it's there for convenience for them not to have to draw characters differently.
Yeah. Yeah, almost certainly. But yeah, we kind of zip past Vegeta. We get to see him with Nappa a little bit. I do have to I do have to say at least touch on the fact that the dub for this is rough. Both the voice acting from the early 90s as well as the writing in particular is rough, and you start to see it in like here is where it started to become a little bit more evident to me.
Yeah, and I mean, part of it too is I'm also used to the way certain characters sound, and the characters they haven't really found their stride yet at this point. I mean, like I mentioned at the start, this is the first in-house dub by Funimation, so I know with anyone's experience with voice acting, I've only done some D&D characters, so I'm not going to speak from a high level professionalism, but it takes a little bit before you get to know your character and get to know how to voice them. And so when you're on that first time you're on that first episode or show, you're still figuring out the ins and outs of the character that you're voicing. So I'm not going to give them too much of a shellacking on this, but you can tell that the edges are quite rough.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. No shade meant towards the voice actors. I mean, it could be really, it's more a comment on how far production and quality and care has come in anime dubbing. Watching like this versus something that you would see today in 2025.
And you hear those horror stories too of people doing dubbing, but they're not actually shown the show that they're dubbing for. They're given lines and then told to read them, and then they're just applied kind of blindly to the show themselves. So you don't know what the voice actors were even given to work off of.
Yes, yeah, and I think that was definitely the case in the 90s and early 2000s in America, where it was just anime dubbing was treated as like an afterthought, basically. Um,
And also to be clear, I'm not above making fun of bad voice acting, okay? I will definitely do that if given the opportunity. But there's reasonable slack that will be given here. I'm not going to bash on it too much, but just understand what you're getting into if you haven't seen this before.
yeah, yeah, definitely. This kind of leads us into the next scene where Vegeta, little kid Prince Vegeta, goes into Frieza's quarters to speak with Frieza. We get to see Dodoria and Zarbon are at Frieza's side, and Vegeta is requesting some sort of like mission to go on. And I mean, good narrative tie in here. We've already seen the Saiyans going on missions, and Frieza says, give the Saiyan Prince the hardest mission that we have available. So this is all, I mean, so far, decent narrative beats.
What's interesting here is that Frieza's voice acting is Frieza's voice acting. So this is for me like the standout um role to me is we get pinnacle Frieza like voice acting this, and I love the delivery of everything where when Vegeta barges into Frieza's room and demands something to do because Vegeta's bored and he's demanding something to do. And Frieza's like, fine, I'll give you the most difficult mission we have available, and you can thank me later. And it's definitely supposed to be like I'm giving you more than what you want. It's actually more of a death mission, I think, than anything else. But
Oh
it's
yeah,
veiled as a gift. And you would be crazy to call Frieza out on that.
yeah, yeah, 100%. Which yeah, I Frieza's probably my favorite villain in all of Dragon Ball, and this is a perfect showcase of why. Because Frieza, I mean, even just the voice acting, the writing, I love that Frieza takes something that is definitely him being an asshole and tries to flip it and turn it as if he's giving somebody a gift.
Like, no, no, no. You want something to do? I'll give you something to do, and you can thank me later.
Uh,
But
uh,
we go from here to Bardock recovering in a what are they called? Baptist chambers, I think.
uh, what did you say?
What's the
Uh,
Saiyan recovery pods? There's like the name for those.
they probably have a better name. I always call them healing pods or healing chambers.
But yeah, it just made me laugh because seeing that Bardock floating in it, I'm just like, that is definitely Goku's character model, just repurposed a little bit for this scene.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Um, and this kind of turns into Bardock's teammates, which we kind of skipped over this, but I wanted to briefly touch on. So Bardock's team is himself and then four other Saiyans. From I want to talk about their names very briefly because they get changed in the English dub, and not like normally we get slight variations on the names, but they get changed whole hog, or at least a couple do. Uh, because we have in the English version we have Tora, Shugesh, Fasha, and Borgos, and Tora is kind of like the main best friend guy. His name in the Japanese is actually Toma, which the reason I even looked these up is because I wanted to know what the puns were. Uh,
That's important. You're correct.
I love the naming puns in Dragon Ball. So Toma is supposed to be like tomato, so vegetable, or I guess kind of not a vegetable, but whatever. Um, Shugesh is actually supposed to be Ponbukin, which is supposed to be a pun on pumpkin. Uh, Fasha should have actually been Seripa, which is like uh, a respelling of the word parsley. And then Borgos should have been in the Japanese Totepo, which is supposed to be a pun on potato. And I'm a little bit bummed that they just decided to change all of these names because what the hell does Shugesh, Fasha, Borgos, and Tora mean? Like none of them are vegetable puns, which annoys me.
Yeah, and they didn't like change them to be more English sounding names. They still sound like, I don't know, kind of foreign sounding. So it wasn't like they're trying to appeal to, our American audience or anything like that. It's they changed them into nonsense where they were puns before. This seems like a strict downgrade.
Yeah, like if you're gonna change them so that English American audiences understood them more, just change them to be closer to the vegetable that they're talking about. Like, just call the dude pumpkin or potato or something. I don't care.
Yeah, it's what a missed opportunity. And the puns are half the fun in the naming convention that Toriyama uses. So it seems like a real shame to overlook that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. But these guys, Bardock's team, basically see Bardock still recovering. They specifically say that he's having some mental issues, which is a callback to 5 minutes ago in the movie, and the as a result, our team decides to go on their next mission without Bardock. They're like, we can handle it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting, right? Because the doctor's just like, yeah, physically he's fine, but his brain's all messed up. Um, but this uh gets interesting because Bardock's in his little floaty water chamber of healing or whatever the heck it is. And he's having visions now. He's having like this weird like connection with like Goku as Goku's crying, or Kakarot, sorry. And he's also getting visions of Planet Vegeta's doom. And it's starting to seem like he has some sort of psychic connection to like his baby and the planet. And he's thinking about things he didn't think about before for the first time as a result of this.
Yeah, yeah. This is. I mean, it's interesting. He's definitely seeing some visions that are strange to him, right? One of the things here too is that there's I don't know if I want to call it reused animation. They're using animation from the original Dragon Ball here as he sees some of these scenes. Um, but he does eventually get out of the healing chamber and he's like, where my guys at? And when he finds out they went on a mission without him, he's like, oh, well, I don't care if I need to rest. I'm going to help them.
Well, it's funny because he's like, this was a mission given to you guys specifically from Frieza. And he's like, finally, like all of our hard work is being recognized. So it's like a big, exciting moment for him.
Yeah, and we're gonna find out that's well, there is a twist in intention from this mission given.
There is,
But
because the next scene is his team being killed by Dodoria.
yeah, so not wasting any time here. And
Okay,
Torres,
real quick. I want to point out that I like this sequence of events, but I wish there would have been a little bit more build up to this happening, because going from, oh wow, Frieza gave us a mission, awesome, I'm gonna go join my team. And then it's just this team being killed by Dodoria in the next scene. And it's just like, if we could have built this up a little bit more, this could have been excellent storytelling.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, I would have liked to have seen the rest of the team get to the planet and maybe even set up like a fake moon, maybe transform or like waiting for the moon or something. Really probably waiting for the moon because then it would make sense for Dodoria to like hop on that opportunity and try to get them before they can transform.
Yeah, like a little bit more, just a little bit more. I love the events that are happening. I just needed them to be fleshed out just a little bit better. But I think this is one of the problems you run into when you're trying to make everything fit into like a 40-minute TV special.
It's not a lot of time to tell a story, admittedly. And as a result, we get this very brief scene with Dodoria finishing off Bardock's team, and then immediately following that, Bardock arrives on the planet and starts to seek out his teammates.
Yeah, and he comes across their thrashed bodies, all of them dead except for Tora, who more or less fills him in on what happened. You know, Frieza being threatened by them and how they were sent out there to be eliminated right before he finally croaks. So lived just long enough to make sure that Bardock got the message.
I mean I'm fine with Tora getting some last words to Bardock, sure, whatever. There is something that is like going to be funny, not only in this special, but just in Dragon Ball in general, about people. First off, bad guys failing to check and make sure that they've finished the job. And then secondly, these bodies just, I feel like there should be more carnage here. Does that make sense? Like there's no impalement, there's no like missing of limbs, there's no like exploded or charred corpses. Like they just look kind of dirty and bloody.
It's very PG. It's
Yeah.
very just like, oh, we've been defeated. Bleh. And you're right. I do wish, and not that Dragon Ball has a ton of like blood and gore, but if there was a scene to add a little bit more edge, this would be the one. It's all of his dead friends. This should be kind of a touching moment. I don't know these people very well, so I felt absolutely nothing seeing all of them dead, but you could have at least dressed the scene a little bit with their bodies a little bit better.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. That's how I felt. Again, I'm also comparing this to my experience watching it as like a 10-year-old or something. So it's I feel very differently about it watching it now. But the next scene I really like, which is going to sound funny because Tora basically croaks and then Bardock like lays him to rest. Bardock goes over to one of his other friends, grabs a bandage from his arm, uses it to wipe the blood from Tora's face, and then as the blood runs down the bandage, Bardock wraps that bandage or bandana around his forehead, just covered in the blood of his allies, which is metal as fuck.
I thought it was weird. This is like that gross bloody rag. You're just like still wet, still sopping wet, just strapping it to your forehead. I'm like, man, that thing's gonna start smelling here in a little bit too. Oh.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like there is a part of me that's like that's kind of weird and gross, but then there's another part of me that's like that's metal as fuck, and it's like a hell of a tribute to your comrades. It's like this imagery or symbolism of now as he goes to fight Frieza's henchmen, of like not only Bardock being there to fight them, but also his allies in the form of their blood. Fucking hardcore.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's all supposed to symbolize like the rag changing colors, kind of him changing sides. So you get to see it's kind of a visual representation of his motives changing. And I do like some of the symbolism. I just don't like thinking about it too deeply because he got that bandage in there. Like he was trying to get that blood. Like he wanted a sloppy, wet bandage to wrap around his head, and just like, oh yeah, yeah, get in there, give me that blood.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, but this is immediately followed by Frieza's henchmen showing up on the scene like, "Oh, hey, Bardock." As Bardock wraps that bandana or bandage around his head, and he starts to take them to town, to be quite honest. This sequence has some pretty fun choreography as we get like a barrage of key blasts from one of the henchmen, and then Bardock appearing above the henchman and just axe handle smashing the guy in the head. You see his head kind of like squish and cave in. This is a pretty fun little sequence.
Yeah, I even like the Bardock kind of obscuring himself in the smoke behind one of the henchmen, causing his allies to key blast at him and kill their own comrade. Like it's kind of a clever use of, oh, we're using scotters. We can't like we are just told where the energy is. We can't sense who it is. And then it's a clever little attention to detail.
Agreed. I like that. I also like it because I think it's 4 against 1 in this fight, so it's like a one versus many fight. So Bardock has to be the smarter, more tactical fighter in order to win.
I think there's even a point too where Bardock mentions that these are Frieza's more elite henchmen. These aren't just regular goons. These are people that are kind of higher on Frieza's fighting capability chart.
Right. And I think we might have glossed over it, but the movie has already established that Bardock and his team are lower class warriors as far as Saiyans and as far as Frieza's army goes, but they've been getting stronger and they've been putting in the work, and that's kind of the whole that's the problem here, at least as far as Frieza is concerned, is this fear that the Saiyans are going to get too strong. And
Yeah,
so
I wish they would have established a little bit better though that because I'm sure Frieza doesn't mind having strong minions, but they I wish they would have established a little bit better that the Saiyans are kind of getting a little uppity. They're kind of, you know, showing some independence or some flares of disloyalty, which would be what I think would really piss Frieza off, where it's just like, yeah, like conquer me 1,000 planets. But the second I get a little bit of backlip, like I'm done with you guys. I wish they would have done a little bit of something like that.
I could see that. I There's a part of me that likes Frieza's paranoia. Like Frieza is the top dog. Frieza's very powerful, especially compared to everybody else involved in this special. Um, but I agree with you that I think it could serve the story better to have some Saiyans who are. I mean, not only does that add to like the ire of Frieza and reason why Frieza would destroy the planet Vegeta, but it also says a lot about the Saiyans, right? Like if they were being uppity and they were not following orders.
Yeah, I didn't feel like the Saiyans were really established as needing to be eliminated very well. And that could have just been my interpretation. Because I mean, even like the quote unquote elite henchmen that they beat didn't look like anybody to me. And they didn't build up the elite henchmen to make me aware that they were elite. I was just kind of told in passing, like I needed a little bit more convincing somewhere in here to make that decision or even show a little bit more of Frieza's paranoia. I needed something to really cement this decision in my head.
I could definitely see that. Um, I think I guess we as the audience, it's funny because we as the audience can kind of extrapolate some additional information in like the legend of the Super Saiyan and stuff because we find out later that Frieza knew about that. But again, we have to kind of add that's kind of foresight into the narrative to make it make more sense.
Yeah, about the only thing we get is just kind of I think Zarban and Dodoria are talking about how quickly the Saiyans are moving up the ladder as far as Frieza's pool of warriors. And I sort of get it. That does an okay job. It like gives me the reason as to why Frieza would be looking at them, but I really give me something. Give me that paranoia. Give me that disloyalty moment. Like I really need like that linchpin thing that really cements this decision.
Yeah, yeah, I could agree. If this movie were or TV special were twice as long, they'd probably have room to actually put stuff like that in here.
Oh god, I would
Um,
love for them to go back and remake some of the old movies and the quality that they definitely deserve.
Same, yeah, definitely. This fight kind of moves forward as Bardock's kind of dispatched two of the three in short, or two of the four rather, in short order. And as he goes to engage the last two, who are one of them is basically saying be careful, and the other one's like we're elites, like we don't need to be careful. Bardock is having another like flash of images, and it's Goku fighting Vegeta on Earth in his Kaioken, and this distracts Bardock to where he just starts getting his ass handed to him. One guy holding him in a full Nelson, the other guy using him like a punching bag.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually think I actively disliked this sudden intrusion of visions the way they did it. Um I felt like this was them trying to tie Bardock to Goku in the series as much as like, hey, like look, it's kind of like this other battle that happens later, huh? Like father like son. Like it just I don't know, it just didn't sit quite right with me. I don't know. I'm very mixed about the whole visions thing. It just feels weird to me.
Yeah, I mean it gives a reason for Bardock to know that Frieza's going to blow up planet Vegeta and then have some sort of like resistance. And it's like there had to have been a better way to do that, right? You could probably like one of Frieza's henchmen just let that information slip or something, or maybe they tried to set up a situation where they kill Bardock's team, but Bardock's team beats the henchmen and then they get that information out of them. Like it feels like there's a better narrative tool than I can see the future.
Yeah. It man, I don't know. It gets rid of an amount of the character's agency where now he's just reacting to plot versus he's coming to these conclusions himself and he's driving his own, narrative sort of thing. And they mentioned that, the alien gave these visions to him as almost like a torture. So that way he could see like his fate, just like how the aliens that they had eliminated saw their fate and couldn't do anything about it. Sure, like I get that. But I don't think that storyline comes for free. I think there's a cost to that storyline, and I think that cost is at Bardock's agency, and so I don't think it's worth it for the payoff.
I agree. I I mean, whenever you have a character that can predict the future or something, it's or let's talk about time travel.
Oh
Yeah, anything like
god.
that can be yeah. It's tricky to weave into the narrative in a way that feels satisfying. So I agree. It feels like it was a way to like there is something poetic about the Saiyans eradicating all these different races and species across planets and then having to like see their own destruction come. But yeah, it's not my favorite storytelling tool, that's for sure.
No, I think me as the viewer could have like saw that symbolism without the needing of like of putting it in all caps and setting it in front of my face.
That's a really good point. But that kind of turns into as Bardock is like distracted by these visions, he's being beaten up by one guy, held by another. He does kind of collect himself and like flips the guy over in midair as the guy doing the punching goes in for like a killing blow, and this killing blow hits the other Frieza henchman in the back, like completely punching a hole through him almost.
I
Uh,
love this. I think it's really cool. Like the way he's utilizing that team against themselves. This shows very high fighting IQ. This shows how to fight against superior numbers, which Saiyans would have been doing all the time. I think the fighting choreography that they chose to use in this, which it's a pretty brief fight, but the stuff that they did decide to use, I thought was very, very well thought out. I thought this was a good fight scene.
So it's funny because I remember really liking this TV special as a kid. I have more mixed feelings about it now as an adult, but this scene is both the scene that I really liked as a kid and as an adult I still love this scene. I agree with everything that you said, Dayton, that it's a brief fight sequence, but it does a great job of showing one fighter who is probably outmatched by the four, but using combat tactics to win the fight. It's just very fun. I have a soft spot for one versus many fights as it is, so I
Well,
really
the
enjoyed it.
one thing that I think really holds a lot of this down is that I just don't feel like there's much budget put into this TV special. Like, it really seems like they're like really trying to be as economic as possible, where they're putting all the detail, all the money. And this is one of those brief scenes, and the stuff that they did get to do looks good. But man, I would have loved this fight to have been 2 or 3 times as long, and just to see an excellent longer back and forth with some exchanges. And you can tell that they're like, "All right, we don't have time, we don't have money. let's just condense it, give them a bite of good stuff because we got to move on to the next thing. Which I'm glad we got it. But man, it always leaves me wanting more when I watch these TV specials. Like, oh, like, can we get more of that? Like, I enjoyed it. I want twice as much fight.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that because this very short sequence, as Bardock key blasts these guys into oblivion, who do get vaporized by the key blast. I just want to point out. This turns into Dodoria now showing up on scene, and with barely a word exchanged, Dodoria just opens his mouth and key blasts the shit out of Bardock.
Yeah, and I mean, it leaves like this big trench in the ground that's like 30 feet wide and 10 feet deep. And right away, Dodoria's just like, huh, well, blasted him into oblivion. And then gets contacted by somebody who says, oh, Frieza wants me back to the ship by the time he reaches Planet Vegeta. All right, guess I'm out of here. And of course, doesn't check to make sure Bardock's dead, who weirdly enough pulls himself out of a pile of his dead friends. What the hell was that about?
There's so many things about this that I have like I just have mixed feelings. The I already mentioned I don't like bad guys in Dragon Ball failing to make sure they finish the job. It happens way too frequently. Of course, we kind of have a I don't know a very ham-fisted reason here where Frieza's like, "Hey, get back to the ship, Dodoria," which later I'm gonna kind of be like, "Why? Why did Dodoria need to get back?" Um, but the other thing I want to talk about briefly is that one, it's again weird that the dead bodies of Bardock's friends don't get vaporized by the key blast. But on the flip side of that, I do actually like the symbolism here one more time of Bardock is Bardock got blasted by the key blast, but at the end of the key blast, he's like you said, Dayton, he's literally pulling himself out of a pile of his friends' dead bodies. So I like the idea of like, or at least the symbolism of Bardock's comrades protecting him one last time against Dodoria's blast, which is like, I don't know, it's just a really cool little symbolic detail.
So, okay. So they've had so many like moments where they're trying to be like father, like son, like Bardock, like Goku. I kept waiting for Bardock to blast open holes in the ground so that way he could make graves for his friends, just like Goku did for Vegeta on Namek. I kept waiting for that crossover and it never happened. And it bothers me right now that he still didn't bury his friends.
I would have really liked that. Yeah, if he just blasted a couple of holes in the ground and buried them in the ground.
Like a Saiyan
Um,
burial. Like it would have been so nice to have seen that. Or at least if you're going to make the crossover, that one would have felt so good. But oh, it just feels like a missed opportunity to me.
I didn't think about that. That's a really good parallel. I would have really enjoyed that. So yeah, that is a bit of a missed opportunity for him.
I,
Um,
I think I'm just bringing it up because I kept waiting for it because I just in my head I was like, obviously they're going to do this, and then he just leaves the planet. I'm just like, but did he just leave his friends lying around? Just like, I'll take your bloody rag and I'll avenge you.
yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think because there's something to be said about the saying culture too, where it's like do they bury their fallen comrades? I don't know, but it would have been a great parallel to Goku later. Um,
Speaking of Goku, we found out that he's being sent off to Earth.
this is I don't know. It's funny. It's goofy. It's probably a dubism, I would guess. Um, but
It is most assuredly a dubism. It's like it just feels like one. Which we've had a joke like this before at some point in Dragon Ball, where they bring up Earth and like, why Earth? Why didn't they just call it Planet Dirt? Like, I like that reference. It's funny. Whereas this one
yeah,
was just like, all right, guys, we're trying a little bit too hard here.
yeah, it's goofy. Whatever. But yeah, they're. I mean, the writing throughout this. We talked about this a little bit before recording, but there's a couple times. There's one point where Bardock says, "Oh my gosh," when he's going like I think it's when he finds his friends, and they are already basically dead, and then another time maybe shortly thereafter after they like Torah croaks where he says, darn it. And it just feels so out of place.
Watching your friends die, you're just like, darn it. Gotta make sure, they wouldn't like it if I used vulgarities.
That's right. It's just yeah. Again, stuff like that has changed in writing for dubbed anime over the decades, but it just felt real weird.
It's definitely like a weird artifact of the time that I think I'm with you. I don't think we can give them too much of a blasting for it because it is kind of very early on in their dubbing. But, we both noticed it, so it has to be pointed out.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. But we very quickly cut to Dodoria's now on the ship with Frieza, and he's like, "Yeah, they're all dead." And quickly, Frieza's like, "Well, what's this Saiyan pod doing heading back to planet Vegeta?"
It's like, oh no, Dodoria, you screwed up again. Frieza basically says, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna take care of this Saiyan problem. I'm gonna pull this weed out by the roots. And it's laid on pretty heavily that Frieza's gonna get rid of these Saiyan monkeys.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. Again, it feels a little silly that Dodoria even needs to be here for this. And even more so, kind of funny that Frieza's like, "Hey, get back here! Hey, you messed up because I rushed you."
See, now if we go back, and I'm gonna beat on this drum a little bit more, if we show the Saiyans being a little bit like showing flares of disloyalty, I could imagine Frieza being like, all of my elite forces, you're gonna be here to witness what happens if you go against me. Like, you're all gonna line up, you're gonna watch this race get eradicated, because if any of you step out of the line, your fate will be the same. I would have loved it.
That's again another great detail that would have been great to add. And yeah, I agree. I would love to see something like that too. And it also speaks to Frieza's character, right? Like we've seen Frieza be cruel. I'm always on board for more dialogue, more details that make us the audience see just how cruel Frieza can be.
Or even petty. Just like, I
Yeah.
don't like them, and so I'm gonna eradicate them. Like, I just need a little bit more here because I think we have all the right components. We just need something to mix them together a little bit more for me, which I could be nitpicking. Actually, I am kind of nitpicking, but it's the spice that I think is missing.
No, I very much agree. This one comes up a little bit short for sure. Um, as Bardock is like injured and flying back home, we get another like scene that tries to tie in Goku and Bardock as the two pods of Goku and Bardock literally pass by one another as Goku is sent to Earth, and Bardock has a vision. He's like, "Oh, I know that that's Kakarot. I know he's going to be, he's going to Earth. He's going to be okay."
Which is weird. I still don't know if he cares about his son or not. Maybe Psychic Man made him care about his son. I don't know. Either way, Bardock does land planet side and planet Vegeta though, and he's all bloody and beaten up. The soldiers that walk out to meet him are like, "Hey, dude, you should really go to recovery," but he doesn't have time for that because he's having a little bit of a mentee B right now, and he's like stumbling through the hallways and like he's having these visions of the planet blowing up and weird visions of his son. Um, and I mean, he basically stumbles into I don't know, like a Saiyan bar is the only way I can describe it, where there's a bunch of Saiyans like drinking and having a good time, and he comes stumbling in and he starts ranting about how Frieza's gonna blow up the planet and they all need to stop him. And they all start laughing at him. They don't believe him. They say that, oh well, you guys got beat up out in some alien planet. Now you're talking about the end of the universe. Right, Bardock. I think you just need to go to recovery.
I've never felt super good about this scene, even as a kid. Like, I don't know. It kind of makes the Saiyans feel very stupid. Um, it's and I get that they want to set up a scenario where the Saiyans don't believe Bardock, and yeah, he can see the future. Like it's a weird thing for people to believe at the same time. But even just the way that the Saiyans are portrayed and like the way that they're acted, all of it like makes them feel just dumb.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good way of putting it because I couldn't put my finger on why this whole scene felt out of place. Um, like this scene just kind of felt like it shouldn't have been here. Like I don't know what to say about it because I think I agree with you where I like the idea of Bardock's trying to help them, but no one will believe him. That concept, great, love it. But this could also be a situation of once again, we've got 40 minutes to tell a story. And so we don't have enough time to build up the Saiyan culture and build up these relationships and watch him try and pull on these threads that he's established earlier and he's not getting anything back. Like we're kind of just thrown into some random Saiyan bar, which by the way, I like that Saiyans put on their battle armor to go to the bar. That's pretty cool. Uh, one of my favorite parts about this is that you only wear battle armor if you're Saiyan. But yeah, there's a better way to have done this. And I don't know, like, I like the idea. Like, you write down on paper what they're trying to convey, and I agree with it, but the execution just seems to be a miss for me here.
The Saiyan battle armor stuck out to me too, where I'm like, it feels like we are putting them all in Saiyan battle armor just so the audience is like, oh yeah, I recognize that as Saiyan battle armor. Those must be Saiyans.
You could tell that these are Saiyans because of their Saiyan battle armor.
Yeah.
Anyway, give me my white solo cup full of juice.
Yeah, I thought that was very funny. Even some of them have like scouters on, and
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
I
right.
get
They
it.
do have the scouters on while they're at the bar.
Like, on one hand, sure, maybe some of them are just getting back from like missions and stuff, or maybe they're getting ready to go out on missions, but everybody across the board has the battle armor.
I mean, it'd be like if you're like a doctor or something, you like, oh, after work, I'm gonna go to the bar with like my trench coat on, like my was it stethoscope or whatever. Like, and I've got everything on. Like, I've still got like my mask on, like from surgery. I've still got rubber gloves on. It'd be like showing up in full like surgery attire at the bar. Like, it's kind of ridiculous.
Yes, yeah, I very much agree. And that's again, it's a failing of the storytelling here, but it's also a failing of the media of this just being like a 40-minute TV special. They don't flesh out the Saiyans. I want to see more of the Saiyan culture, which is really a huge bummer.
I mean, honestly, I thought the beginning was the best fleshing out of the Saiyan culture, where they're just like, yeah, I don't even see my kid. We're out on a planet. We fight under the moonlight because that's when we're at the strongest. But we've got the downside. We don't like. There was a lot of kind of info dump at the beginning, and they actually show you it. They don't just tell you it; they show you it. And it's kind of really well written, I think. Anyway, the beginning of this, but it's something where I feel like the further you get into this, you're really starting to see like the ends unravel because I feel like the first part of this is decently told and now we're getting nearer and nearer to the end and it's kind of not really piecing together as well as it did.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. This kind of results though in Bardock making his way out of the bar. He's not getting any help. He's like, well, I'm gonna have to go oppose Frieza all by myself. And then this is probably one of the biggest, like, I don't know if you want to call it future flash forwards or sequences or what, but it literally shows Bardock as if he were on the planet Namek, and Goku is, as an adult, is talking to Bardock, is calling out to him, like, you know who I am, I'm your son, right?
Yeah, man, I don't know. It's more vision stuff. I've already said my opinions about the vision stuff. I don't know. It's a little bit too much in your face of like, I'm your son and I'm going to, you know who I am. Like, you know what's going to happen, Bardock. And it's just like, all right, well, I don't know. Does this make it a better story? I don't know. Like, this feels like, once again, we're typing in all caps locks here. Like, we could write a story without this and it would have been fine, but I don't know. I don't
I
need this.
agree.
I'm not a big fan of this stuff. I don't want to pound on the drum too much longer because I've already kind of said my piece about these visions.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It was also even like, it was kind of fun, but also jarring to hear Sean Schemmel as Goku say the name Bardock, because he almost never refers to his father. So it was just funny to hear him say the name.
Well,
Uh,
that I feel the same way because when I think of Goku's father, I think of basically Grandpa Gohan. Like
hmm.
Grandpa Gohan is basically Goku's dad. Raised him since he was a baby, taught him the initial values and stuff. Um, And we even get some really deep beats between Grandpa Gohan and Goku. So these are like I don't really there's basically no relationship between Goku and Bardock. So seeing this scene is it kind of felt like a fish out of water. Like I don't really know what's happening here. Also, you
Yeah,
established pretty early that Bardock doesn't even really care about Goku. And also Goku doesn't really know Bardock, so eh.
right. I do want to talk about, well, once we get to the end here, we'll see like a slight shift in Bardock, but this turns into Bardock finally getting to a point where he can just fly out into space and confront all of Frieza's army and Frieza's spaceship and Frieza himself.
Yeah. So this scene is interesting because it's like you've got dozens of dudes just piling on top of Bardock as he's flying through space, and like they're clumping to him like it's Katamari Damacy or something like that, and like they'll clump onto him and then break off, and he'll fly through, and then it happened probably 3 times where he's just like clumped full of dudes and has to break away.
There is like, I want to like this scene because I like the idea of like Bardock just flying through dozens of henchmen, and even the visual of a bunch of them grabbing onto him and Bardock still continuing to fly despite that is a cool visual. But they repeat literally the same animation multiple times, and it kind of defeats the whole epicness of the scene, unfortunately.
And also, we've seen movies and specials where Piccolo just like dispatches henchmen in freaking style. So we know they can do a better job with this.
Right. Right. It does have, I mean, a little bit of a badass element in just that, you know, Bardock is pushing through all these guys, and the entire time he's just like, Frieza, come fight me. Um
And the
and he
visual of
does.
Frieza's ship sitting in space too, with like you can see like the hundreds of little specks that are henchmen just pouring off of it, like the challenge that's before Bardock, which give me a little bit more here, and I really appreciate it. But it's like we kind of mentioned, it's the same repeating scene like 3 times as he's blasting his way through. It's another concept that is really cool, but the execution just needs a little bit more work. We need a little bit more spice here.
I definitely agree. Bardock does make his way to Frieza's ship, which is a feat in itself. I mean, really says something about, I don't know. It feels a little bit weird, but also says something about Frieza's army and his elite forces and Bardock's strength too. Um, and as a result, Frieza comes out in his little floaty chair and confronts Bardock himself face to face.
Yeah, and I I love the way Frieza's written into this scene because Bardock's giving like this speech, right? Like we no longer work for you, and he's being defiant, and you see him kind of build up this key blast as he prepares to launch it, and Frieza's just sitting there, just kind of you can tell Frieza's irritated, and there's this little ball of energy just sitting on Frieza's fingertip this whole time Bardock's going through his spiel. And when the key blast from Bardock is finally launched, you see Frieza's face just light up as the little ball of energy expands probably 1,000 times and just engulfs Bardock's key blast and begins just filling the sky with this massive amount of energy. And Frieza's just begins cackling as he moves his finger and launches the ball down straight into Bardock and towards the planet. Like, I love that Frieza was not even really giving Bardock the time of day. Just like, you're a nuisance. I'm irritated with you and I'm happy to get rid of you. I'm not going to even recognize you as like another living thing, basically.
Agreed. Yeah, the way Frieza handles Bardock here is spectacular, and this culminates in, I mean, we've got this massive key blast, Frieza's death ball, descending upon the planet Vegeta. And it's funny because I think there's a sequence early in Dragon Ball Z in the anime that shows this scene, and the impression that you kind of get is that all the people in the background are Saiyans, that like Frieza's wiping out all these Saiyans who have come to defy him. But when we watch this special, we find out that it's not a bunch of Saiyans. It's one Saiyan, and the rest of the people that Frieza wipes out himself are his own henchmen, his own army that he just mass murders.
Yeah, it's very Frieza. It's the I don't really care about the collateral damage. Like, I don't really care about the friendly fire. I just need these people gone. I don't care what happens to the loyalists as long as the disloyalists are eradicated. It's very, very Frieza. Well written. Love it.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, this turns into Bardock basically getting vaporized, Planet Vegeta exploding in a burst of fireworks, and before we really get to see Bardock's demise, we do get to see one more flash of the future as we see Goku against Frieza, and Bardock comes to realize my son is going to be the one who defeats Frieza, which, again, there is poetic justice in that, but the seeing the future part is like, it's just unnecessary. It's just too much.
Yeah, and I'll just go through the last couple shots here so that way we can talk about everything as a whole. Right before the credits, we get a couple scenes, one of which is, Goku heading towards Earth, who gets like I think he gets a psychic farewell from Bardock, which neato. But we get a scene of Grandpa Gohan coming across him and actually picking up Goku and naming him as he finds Goku just outside of his Saiyan pod. We also get, and I like this scene a lot. It's Vegeta, unsaid alien world he was sent off to conquer, and he gets the message that unfortunately planet Vegeta was destroyed by a meteor, and Vegeta's just sitting there just like eating lunch basically, and the guy asks, he goes, "Hey, would you like to send a message to Frieza?" And he just goes, "No." And you see him just kind of keep concentrating on eating as he's sitting there, and as it zooms out you just see piles of alien bodies all around him as he sits like in this like dark area eating lunch by himself. Like it's kind of a wild scene. I think it says an incredible amount without really saying anything at all.
I very much agree. I like that scene a whole lot, and it ties back to, we were told through the narrative earlier that Frieza was giving Vegeta the hardest mission that they had available. So we then get to see the aftermath of that in this child mass murdering this species of creatures and seemingly having no problem with this mission that was supposed to be the most difficult that they had. And then just how cold he is, finding out his entire planet, his entire race, probably his father and other family members were just murdered, and he doesn't seem to care. Either he doesn't care or he's not showing that he cares.
Yeah, and we know from the Dragon Ball Z series that um it seems like he does believe that the planet was destroyed by a meteor, right? Because that reveals a huge one for him. Um if I remember correctly. And so you got to what is he thinking about in this moment, because he doesn't show any emotion, right? Like he keeps it together. And you got to be wondering cuz he's young and he's way more well put together than you would expect anyone of his age to be. Like he just takes the news of all this and just keeps on trucking through it. Um, man, I think this is a really deep scene. I don't even know if this scene's supposed to be as deep as maybe they were intending it to be, but I think this is a fantastic depiction of a young Vegeta. I think Vegeta is actually the best handled character in this movie.
That's why Vegeta's the best character in Dragon Ball. No,
um, Outside of this, we get the credits of Goku doing some fighting and growing up, and this is like these credits are shown to the background of like Sum 41 and other like alternative rock bands that were popular at the time being played.
yeah, that felt really weird to me. Even though I know we've just covered a few movies that have like 90s and early 2000s rock music laid over them. I don't know. These ones felt even more off to me.
It made me
It,
laugh a little bit. But yeah, this is man, this was a movie we watched. I have so many conflicting opinions about this one because other ones I've had like fun with, but it's this, that, or the other. Like it doesn't really matter. Some of them are more obviously like not canon, but this one isn't obviously non-canon, so it could be canon. which means that I have to kind of analyze the things that are in it because they could have consequences. And I just don't know. And I know I've mentioned this many other times, but I'm not a fan of so much destiny already being balled up in Goku's life because I like him just being some bum guy from the mountains who worked really hard to make an impact in the universe. Like that feels great to me. It loses a lot of meaning when like your dad like developed psychic powers and like tried to overthrow the tyrant and now it's like in your bloodline sort of thing. It's really really bizarre to me.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to talk briefly because I know you wanted to kind of like dive into Bardock's story and his connection to the plot and everything. Like some people liked the way that Bardock's story was changed in Dragon Ball Super Broly, or what was originally called the Dragon Ball Minus, which was like the manga interpretation of exactly what they showed in the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie. Which, just as a reminder for both you and for anybody listening, the in the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie, it feels it feels like Superman's origin story. It is basically uh, Bardock and Gine, so Goku's or Kakarot's parents. They catch wind of the destruction, or they're worried about Frieza coming and attacking them, or something to that effect, and they specifically go out of their way to make sure they take Kakarot, they put him into a space pod, and they send him off to Earth. It's not planned or scheduled by anybody else. It's Kakarot's parents who save him specifically. Um, and that is like it depicts a very different type of character and a very different type of just the Saiyans themselves, like their culture, because this movie, this special depicts the Saiyans as being wildly uncaring about their children. It's very alien, feels very different. I think I like that better, honestly. What do you think,
I'm
Dayton?
100% in agreement. I like this depiction a lot better because these aren't humans, these are aliens. And so their culture should almost kind of feel alien to you. And I think having this warrior race that's like a warrior all the way down to like their toes, sort of thing, where they're like, yeah, even our children are warriors. And we can send them off to weak planets, and that's how they hone their skills, and that's how they learn to survive and be the savage, like monsters that we kind of need them to be. Because you got to think like Goku going Zaro form a couple times probably could have been enough to wipe out the planet. And if it wasn't for Grandpa Gohan telling him about the monster that comes out during the full moon, a lot of the planet could have been wiped out. So there's kind of this, I don't know, intent I feel when you're sending Saiyans to a planet. Um, because saving Goku almost assuredly probably meant dooming whatever planet you sent him to. At least my understanding of Saiyan culture. But we don't know if the movies are canon or not, and if they are, then this one might have been retcon with the new Broly stuff. So it's kind of up in the air. But just comparing the two, I think I agree with you. I like the rendition of the Saiyan culture better in Bardock, Father of Goku. I mean, the Broly movie is just better quality, but you can tell that they probably also had a lot more budget and time, and it's also newer. So I'm not going to hold that against the Bardock movie too much. But yeah, as far as just saying culture goes, I think the Bardock movie does a better job. I I think trying to make Goku's parents feel more human actually does a disservice.
I agree. I and I mean, again, like Goku's story already has a lot of parallels to like the Superman story, and when you change it to where his parents like saved him and sent him off planet, it's just what's his name? Kal-El. I don't remember Superman's
Clark Kent
father's
or
name.
something.
Yeah, his he has a Kryptonian, or his father has a Kryptonian name. I can't remember if Kal-El might be Superman's Kryptonian name, but regardless, there's so many parallels to that story in Dragon Ball with Goku, and the Dragon Ball Minus story with Bardock and Gine makes it almost a one for one parallel with Superman. And I like the differences in Goku's story. I like that Goku has this like very subtle toxic nature to him and that he endangers people around him just for his own and entertainment and to fight strong guys. And I like the idea that, like you said, Dayton, I prefer that his parents are not really anybody special. I do like the idea of Bardock being a low class warrior, and that just because he goes out and fights these really hard missions and basically comes back half dead, gets that like Zenkai boost that the Saiyans get. I like that he gets stronger over time because of it. Like that's a fun detail. But again, it's because Bardock was a low class warrior and put in the work, which is a parallel to Goku, and I think I'm okay with that parallel. I think there is a little bit, maybe a little bit too much in getting like giving Bardock the ability to see the future and then resisting against Frieza and all that. Like, just let Goku be a nobody.
Yeah, well, it almost feels like the fate of Planet Vegeta happened because of Bardock. Like it almost feels like that. If
Yeah,
he hadn't been so successful, then well, it probably would have been some other Saiyan that would have caused Planet Vegeta to be destroyed. But there's just too much lining up with Bardock's story that makes it feel like Goku's like accomplishments were actually destiny, and to me that breaks like a big Dragon Ball rule for me, where it's like the hard work is what matters. It's the work you put in is what you get out, and the further away we get from that, the less relatable the story becomes, and the less inspiring it becomes to me.
I agree with you. We've talked a little bit about this, and I keep alluding to it, but I really want to get you to read through or watch through
Ugh,
the
reading.
manga
Ugh,
story.
ugh.
The manga story has some interesting beats involving Bardock, that I'd be curious to hear your take on. But yeah, I want Goku to be somebody who, it was not his destiny. It was not in his bloodline. None of that. I want him to have been a character who worked hard, trained hard, pushed himself to his absolute limits and beyond. And that is like, I mean, that has had a huge impact on my life, is that sort of mentality. And that's one of the reasons why I love Dragon Ball even to this day, like 30 years after I originally watched it.
Yeah, it should be a story that inspires anybody who watches it, where it's like it doesn't matter what you come from. It doesn't matter who your parents were or who you know. It matters how hard you work and how much you're willing to push yourself. And so that's why I will always kind of have a problem with Bardock, is that I feel like Bardock should be a nobody. That that's important to Goku's storyline. Goku should come from nobodies and should end up somewhere where he has nothing. And he works his way up to one of the most important people in the universe because of his hard work, not because of any destiny, not because of any bloodlines, but because he worked towards it. And that's something that Dragon Ball shouldn't touch. And sometimes I feel like in their pursuit of just making more Dragon Ball content, they kind of forget about some of the important messaging that's been a key part of Dragon Ball for so many decades.
I completely agree. That I think that occasionally some of the writers, and this is like, I mean, this special, I don't think Akira Toriyama had anything to do with at all. So I mean, some of the writers, whether it's at Toei or otherwise, they they look and they see where there are holes in content, like Kakarot's parents was something that was not fleshed out. And so they were like, oh, this is something that we could flesh out and capitalize on. And sometimes they do it in a way that really does not pay homage to the story that came before it.
Yeah, I mean, man, we still have so many areas that we could explore that could be a lot of fun. Like we could follow Raditz and see what his life is like. Like that would be interesting. He's I don't have a problem with Raditz existing at all. Like his introduction's actually really rad. Like I'd like to see a story surrounding him. I'd like to see Cooler revamped and tried again, because I liked the Cooler's Revenge stuff. It was fun. His character like looks cool visually speaking. His Shredder mask I think is pretty rad. I'd like a story update and some modern lenses to look at him through because I think he could be a fun character that we could re-explore. So there's plenty that they could do within the Dragon Ball universe. We don't need also to kind of back it up just a little bit. We also don't necessarily need everything to be explained. It's kind of fun having some unexplored areas in the universe so that way we as a fandom can explore them ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. I Yeah, as far as this special and the narrative goes, I mean, it feels rushed. There's some fun stuff with Bardock's fights. I don't like the seeing the future stuff. I think it's a bad storytelling device. I think you said it perfectly, Dayton, where it's too much in your face and it just goes overboard. Um,
It's not a terrible movie though. Like there's actually some
no,
fun spots. The pacing is okay. Like it's not one of the worst. Like I've seen worse pacing specials or movies for sure. Um but like I'm not bored at least. They're at least keeping the plot moving along. So it's more or less a fine watch, but there's definitely some like plot holes and some areas that they explore that are really kind of problematic to me.
yeah, yeah, I would agree. I Funny enough, I always really liked Bardock and this special when I was younger. I think the older that I get, though, the more that I'm kind of like I'm not super keen on Bardock's story, or it's mostly what you've already said, Dayton. In that I want him to be a nobody. I don't like him being significant, and then that kind of being passed on to Goku.
I'm much
Um,
more interested in seeing a history of Grandpa Gohan.
I would love to see that. Really, you mentioned two characters that I would love to see in Raditz and Grandpa Gohan both. I would love to know more about their stories. Like Raditz, we basically just get shows up on Earth, says, "Hey, I'm your brother. Hey, I'm gonna take your son. Hey, you should come fight with us, or I'm gonna kill your son," and then dies. And it's like that's all we got.
Yeah, like he's been living out in this universe. Like the post Planet Vegeta life for Saiyans must be wild, and I would love to see that explored a little bit more. Because I mean, you're basically kind of like nomads, just going from planet to planet. Um, like you're kind of keeping the flame going of this dead culture, which is a weird place to be. I'd love to see that explored a little bit more. There's some really cool territory that they could just have some fun with.
Yeah, yeah, hard to agree. I don't know that I have a whole lot more to say about this one though. I mean, it's fine. Like I like the action. It's yeah. I mean, I feel like they're overstepping a little bit in making Bardock a little bit too important, but otherwise, it's a fun watch.
Yeah, it's a fine. You can tell they tried on it. It's just I think there's some misses. There's some things that look good on paper, but the execution could use some work. It's an okay watch. It's probably the first I would say TV special or original movie that I think actively introduces some things that I have some big problems with. So it's probably one of the ones that while it has some good stuff, it's the first one where I'm like, it has some real big problems though that need to be talked about. So the other ones I'm just like, oh, this is definitely not canon. Like oh, this happened after Goku went to Namek, but before he fought Frieza, but we're on Earth. Okay, yeah, this isn't canon. Like I don't care. But this one, it's kind of pitched as if it's more canon-y than the other ones.
Yeah, this one even has sequences. I think snippets, maybe even taken directly from this or the other way around, that are in the anime itself. So feels like it's tied more directly into the narrative.
Yeah, it feels like they're trying to tie this one in. So it's got to be looked at with a little bit more scrutiny than maybe the other ones I've looked at.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. I don't have a whole lot to say about this one beyond that, though. Did you have anything else you wanted to cover on this one, Dayton?
No, that's it. Go ahead and take us out, Todd.
That's going to be it for this episode of Instant Transmission, where we discuss everything Dragon Ball. This has been your host, Todd.
And Dayton.
Don't forget, we're on Patreon and Discord. If you want to help us shove our boot in Frieza's cold anus, you can find us at patreon.com/itdbpodcast. The Discord link will be in the episode description, but you can also find it and all of our other links at linktree/itdbpodcast. Thank you all so much for your support. Be sure to join us next time as we prepare ourselves for the healing pods and cover the top 5 most violent scenes in Dragon Ball. Punches to the face, holes through the body, and limbs ripped clean off. Dragon Ball has no shortage of violence. But which ones stand out as the most visceral, the most brutal, and the most traumatizing that not even a sensu bean could heal those wounds? Will Piccolo blasting a hole in Goku's chest during the World Martial Arts Tournament make the list? Will Piccolo blasting a hole in Goku's chest during their fight with Raditz make the list? Will anything other than Goku getting a hole blasted through his chest make the list? Find out next time. And to all our fellow Dragon Ball fans, stay safe out there, and remember to keep rocking the dragon.
Now I just need a scene of Goku swinging around his chest plug from a chain like in Kung Pao.
That's like his stomach plug, man.